Hi everybody, today I want to bring to you guys the first part of a three-part series on color correction using Lightroom and Photoshop. So today I'll be covering how we can do some basic color correction in Lightroom, even though Lightroom is probably my least favorite place to do color correction because I feel that it is not very efficient and you have very little control of how much color correction and where you want to color correct. But let's get into it. I have this photo that I was asked to shoot with the artificial lights on, but there was a huge influence of daylight coming in, but it was not direct sunlight, it was indirect light, so that meant that the light coming in is blue. So it means I have a mixture between blue and orange from the artificial lighting. So the first thing I'll want to do is to get a general white balance of the situation. A very easy way to do that would be to use a color picture. So I would go to somewhere I would believe that is gray, or if I remember that it was gray. But there's also a really great tip that you can use if you don't have a neutral gray area to white balance from with a color picture. You can come here, I'll go to as shot, and you can take the temperature slider, and if you look at your histogram, you can see that you have all these peaks and valleys. A correct white balance will be when your grayscale histogram is somewhat in line with your color histogram. Specifically in this case our blue and yellow, our cyan and yellow. So what I'll do is I'll take my temperature slider here and I'll look at my histogram and I'll slide that until they all somewhat line up. And that will give me a certain correct white balance for this image. Same thing with a tint. We'll slide that until they all kind of line up. It won't be every image that you can do this with because you might have an image with a very large blue sky, so obviously your blue histogram will not line up with the rest. But for interiors and for quite a lot of exterior shots, it's a manual way of getting a white balance when you don't have a gray reference point. So perfect. Now we're going to get into our actual color correction. Here I see a light source, and if I put my mouse over it, I see that for the RGB values you have 70%, 68%, and 59%. That means that my image at that point is being pushed more to the red-orange scale of color than it should be. This area should be somewhat of a neutral gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift J, or I could come into my localized filters and go to range, color range. But since I'm lazy, I prefer the quick key, so Shift J. And what I'll do is I'll click on the area that I want to color correct. Remembering that if I do a single click, it will only choose that range of colors. If I click and drag, it will give me a bit of an extension of how many values I want to select. But in this case, I just want to click. From this point, I'll press O, and that will turn on my markers, my overlay. You can either manually click here or press O. And what I'll do now is actually I already have a preset. I'm just going to turn that preset off. I'm going to reset it. And I'll turn off my display of the overlay. And I'll come into my color control. And here I have the temperature. So I know that this is somewhat orange. So what I want to do is apply some blue. I can kind of eye it until it's somewhat correct. Another way, I can put my mouse over that value again and see if it's evened out a bit more. I don't want it to be completely gray because I want a bit of that warmness. Another important factor is this refine. So I'm going to turn this actually to black and white. White on black. Oh, if I use this refine, what it will do, it will consider fewer values based on the value I defined. If I put my refined more to 100, it will include more values. So this is kind of you kind of have to eyeball it to see if you want more or less. But another thing I can do, I can put the refine up here around 80 something. And then I can come to my mask and I can press Alt or Option on the Mac, and I can come to intersect. And then I will choose brush. And what this will do now is I'll make my brush a bit larger, and then I can paint over the areas that I want to color correct. A big tip that I give you guys for if you want to do color correction within Lightroom, don't try and do everything all at once. Don't try and do the color correction on the entire photo. Sometimes it's better to do it in steps, in regions, using your intersect. So that, because what happens, a problem with color correction on Lightroom is because we don't have much control, and when you have two different Kelvin values intersecting, you have an area of transition between the blue light or white light and the orange light. And when they mix, that's the problem. So it's very hard to color correct the mixture between the two areas. That's why this refine and the brush is so helpful. But what I'll normally try and do, I see there's a huge area over here, it's fine. Now I'll come to a second area, and I'll come into color range, and I'll try and get this area here. Well, I'll color correct that a bit. In this case, I'm going to change this over to color. Sorry. Whoops, wrong button. Color overlay, I prefer that. Click here. I'm going to refine this. I want it to include very few values. I'm going to take off my color overlay, do the correction that I want, play a bit with tint as well, and then I'm going to come into my intersect with my brush. If I want the brush to be a bit more precise, I can also turn on my auto mask. This I normally want to do with the overlay turned off. So I'll try doing this in a few steps. I'll create a new color range, get the sofa here. It's obviously quite orange. Color correct that a bit. So I'm going to try and get a few more values. So I'm going to click and drag. Then I'm going to intersect with my brush, and then paint a bit here, a bit there. I'm actually going to refine this. Remember, as long as I'm in the brush, I can't refine my color range. I have to click within the mask on color range, and then come to refine, where I can include or reduce the amount of values that's going to be included in that. Since I have that gray wall is a bit blue, I'm going to actually do another one. And once again, color range, click here where it's a bit blue. I can just add a touch bit of orange there. Oh, to see where that's happening. Play with the refine a bit. Yeah, I'm going to go with the lower, and then also intersect with a brush. Just paint in that region of the gray wall, paint a bit here, paint a bit here. So as an overall before and after, it's before my masks and after. And if I want to get a before and after of everything, I can always press my backslash key. My backslash key for some reason is not working. I'll do a quick reset here. So that's a quick color correction within Lightroom. Remembering that you can also use a curve, but the curves are still not very developed within the filters. So I can also come in here and adjust my curve a bit. Oops, click on this one. Adjust my curve a bit to play around with a bit with the colors, but I still feel that curves for color correction in Lightroom is still not very efficient. It would be nice, I hope Adobe is listening, it would be nice to have those color pickers here, just like we have in our curves in Photoshop. So I could just grab my color picker and click on a mid-gray and it correct everything for me. But unfortunately we still don't have that, but soon we will. So I hope that this helps you out with some basic color correction that will be done with Lightroom. And in the next video, I'll be speaking about how we can use Photoshop and Smart Objects to do color correction in Photoshop. And in the third video, I'll be speaking how we can do color correction and color matching using curves in Photoshop, which I believe is the best method. So I hope this video helps you guys out. If you have any questions or suggestions, please write in the comments, and like and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope that this video helps you guys out. Have a great day.